Welcome to the Rookie Marican podcast, also Instagram Live. If you are live today, I'll give you guys a few minutes to hop on. We are going to be talking about what does late-term abortion actually mean? Because a lot of people voted for this thing and they didn't really know what they were voting for. And now a bunch of states have passed it. Alaska, Colorado, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, Vermont, New York. But, you know, there are also a lot of other states who've always had it, depending on the life of the mother, whether or not the mother was going to live. So, listen, this is going to be a hardcore live/podcast. Just want you to give you a heads up. The girl who's coming on, the woman who's coming on, Giovanna Clash, she is co-founder of Godtrepreneur. I had interviewed her husband a couple weeks ago, and that was a really good interview. And so this girl's a powerhouse on all her own. She's originally from Massachusetts, lives in Puerto Rico right now. And she handles my marketing. So everything that you see is because of her. I don't do any of it. I do maybe a little bit. That's it. But here she is now. Let's get her on. If we can get her on.
Hey.
Hi, Gio.
Can you hear me good?
I can, yeah. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I was just about to comment a crying, laughing face on the marketing part because that's pretty funny.
It's true. I dislike marketing very much. I don't want to have anything to do with it. So I'm very glad that you guys jumped into my life when you did.
Well, it is a pleasure for us. Well, John and I always say you are an absolute pleasure to work with. In our industry, in our profession, in all the years that we've been in sales, whenever we come across somebody that is a pleasure to work with, it is like it's golden. For us, it's like to find someone like you is really, you don't find them often. And so we're very grateful to work with you too.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I was just telling the people, all the people in the world, that what we're going to be talking about today. And I know that you are kind of I don't want to say abortion expert, but this is something that you're very passionate about.
Yeah.
Something that you like discussing. And, you know, there's a lot of what's the word? Crap. I can't think of the word now. Censorship when it comes to this stuff, you know, and so sometimes we have to be careful about what we say, how we say it, unfortunately, just to get the original message that we want to get out so that people can educate themselves. Hey, Claude. It's CJ. But, you know, I wanted to thank you for coming on and thank you for taking the time out. I really appreciate it. And for those of you that have been on my podcast and have seen some of my stuff, you know, you've seen I have two other podcasts regarding this same topic. One of them is the original intent of abortion, where I dive deep into the history of abortion and why it was originally created. And also another one with Karina Wallace, where we talked about the Planned Parenthood approved curriculum that has gone into public schools. That was I got a lot of feedback. A lot of parents were very concerned after that podcast. But, you know, we want to give people action steps for, you know, if maybe they've ever had an abortion. I mean, we're not just here to talk about what we believe and the facts on abortion. We're also here to encourage you and to give you action steps to help you heal when it comes to that sort of thing. So, Gio. Take it away, my friend. Take it away. What would you like to say to start?
Real quick, let's pin that the comment that I just put, abortion combo, just so when people log in, they know what we're talking. Even though it's at the top, but it kind of like blurs out up at the top. So
yeah, got it.
Well, what's up, everybody? Thank you so much, Lissette, for having me on. You know, I'm really grateful, really grateful that I get the opportunity to do this. It's very interesting because to be doing this at this point in my life is something that I thought I would never be doing. You know, I'm not like, if people that know me now, and there are some people that know me now and know me then, how I used to be, they would be like, there's no freaking way. But, you know, things have really changed in my life over the years. And I definitely wouldn't say that I'm an abortion expert. I'm definitely not. I'm far from it. I'm still learning a lot about the industry. I'm still learning, you know, every single day, every moment that I get the opportunity to learn about how I can educate people on abortion. I want to do that, not because I want to come at anybody's neck, not because I don't understand where you're coming from, not because I want to argue with people, but because I truly care about women. And I think that you as well, and I think that a lot of us women truly care about women. And part of the reason why we fight so hard, part of the reason why we go so hard, part of the reason why we advocate for life is because I believe the ones that, you know, are on the pro-life stance truly have a major love. And not everybody, because we know there are some people in the pro-life movement, just like there are people everywhere that are not that easy, you know, but I think that for the most part, we have this profound love for women. And we want to be able to express that and educate people on the truth behind abortion. And so, ladies and gents, the ones that are getting connected on Lissette's page and the ones that are on my page, maybe you don't know me yet, my name is Giovanna. I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts. I now live in Puerto Rico with my husband, who's originally from New York. And I have an extensive background that I won't get into here, but I'm a believer. Jesus is number one in my life always, and hasn't always been, but is always now. And I love to travel. I love you know, to fight for women. I love to speak up about the truth. I'm in sales, and we have a brand called Godtrepreneur, my husband and I. And at this point in my life, I'm dedicating a lot of my time to sharing the gospel with people, educating people on the truth about the Lord, educating women and men about abortion, and talking about some polarizing topics that I think that some people are afraid to talk about. And I don't dabble into every single area because there's a lot of complexity nowadays. Mm-hmm. and you know this, Lissette, you're also super educated, and you know, someone that I admire, somebody that I'm so excited that I get the opportunity to work alongside with and learn from. And as you understand, you know, there are these polarizing topics that are just really difficult, really complex, and not easy to break down. Not only are they not easy to break down, but they're not easy to digest. People have a very difficult time digesting some of the things that we're going to talk about today, and some other topics. And so, you know, I do my best to educate on what I learn about, and to just share it with people, and do it in kindness, do it in love. It's never in attack mode, but to simply share and do that in a respectful way. And so, going into what we're going to talk about tonight, which is abortion, I used to be pro-abortion. I spent many years being pro-abortion. I would go to rallies. I would go to marches. You know, I was one of those in-your-face type of women that had a pretty tough character, pretty tough attitude for some time, and was just in like a really difficult place for a few years, emotionally, spiritually, in just a really, really difficult spot. I had a really tough time handling the things that were happening in my life, handling the things that had happened in my past. And I didn't deal with them very well. And so over the years, I started to get involved with a lot of different people. And, you know, I just started accepting a lot of things in my life. And, you know, I won't go into all of the things that I did a video on YouTube about, where I, you know, my new age beliefs and all that stuff. But, you know, I associated myself around people that thought the same way that I did. And when it came to abortion, I associated myself around women that felt the same way that I did. And they confirmed the way that I felt with their beliefs and the things that they were going through in their life. And so we kind of all did these things together. We would go to these events. And, you know, I was constantly, what's the word I guess I'm looking for? I was constantly like reassured that how I was feeling was okay. You know, my sentiments towards abortion were okay. Even though I didn't really understand what it was. There was really no logic. It was a lot of emotion behind my beliefs. I was still constantly reassured that this was the right path that I was going down. And so, you know, I just fought based off of emotion, based off of, you know, being in a crowd and with other people that were also emotional. I just kind of fought for that stuff. I never really thought about it deeply. until one day I was confronted with the thought of what it really meant. And that's when things started to change for me. And so, I was a part of the abortion movement for a while. And then I got confronted by my husband about abortion. And, we were just having like a regular conversation about it. And, he's pro-life and I was pro-abortion at the time. And, he made some questions, he asked me some questions that I never, ever, Lissette, and anybody that's on this live, I was never asked these questions. I mean, in my life, and all of the time that I believed in abortion. And I just really had to step back and think to myself, man, this guy is saying some solid stuff, but am I going to give in? Am I going to give up this, internally, this thing that I felt was being ripped from me, this right that was being ripped from me, because I was told this was my right for so long, this is my right, who are you to tell me what you're talking about? And so I wasn't sure if I was willing to give that up. And so it took me some time to have to process these questions that I had never been asked before, that I had never been confronted with before. And then, I have always been the type of person that if, you share the truth with me, I may be a little bit upset, but I will look into it. And, once I find the truth, there's no going back. There's no, I found the truth, let me just shut up about it and continue doing what I'm doing, even when I know the truth. And so at this time, I wasn't a believer. And so, it wasn't a Holy Spirit filled conviction. It was this is really logical what this guy is saying. And I should probably take a seat and look into this stuff if I care that much, if I really care about women, if I'm really trying to find the truth, if I'm really a person of integrity, if I'm really a public voice, if I really want to be an influence, I should probably look into this stuff. And so what happened was I just started to look into it. And that's when everything changed.
What were some of the questions that you can say that he asked you that challenged that belief?
There were a lot of questions. But I think most importantly, a question that a lot of people that believe, and myself, I always want to reference back to myself, guys. Just remember, as I'm speaking, I never want to point any fingers because I can point them back on myself because that's where I was. But a lot of abortion advocates are asked this similar question, and I'm pretty sure this came up, but it's, what is an abortion? Don't just tell me it's a right. What is it? And to not be able to actually explain what that is, because that industry doesn't do a good job at explaining it, because they know that once you know what it actually is, you might change your mind. So that was definitely one of them. What do you even know what happens during an abortion? Also, do you understand the concept of life beginning at conception? And how can you prove to me that life does not begin at conception? I think that question for a lot of people is a difficult one as well. Let's think. So many questions about okay, let's talk about, which is, one of the number one things, and I don't want to dive into this one too extensively because I know how emotionally charged this one is. But I quickly snapped at John when he asked me some of these questions and said, well, you don't have much sympathy for the women that are sexually assaulted and need to get this done. And he shared a statistic with me that I didn't know. And I'm sure you're familiar with it. And I guess for the people that are not familiar with it, not that this is okay, not that sexual assault is okay, not that I'm okay with it, not that I believe anybody in the pro-life movement is okay with it. But it is a very small case. It's about 1%. And so for me to be fighting for something that was so slim, and not fighting for overall the children and the babies in the womb, was definitely a hard pill for me to swallow. And then I would say that, and I think for the most part it was, what is an abortion, and do you understand the process and what it's like? And understanding, once I understood that, and once I couldn't really break that down, every other question kind of like shattered, at least my beliefs, you know, because there were many in between things that I had to think about. But I think the value of life, you know, life beginning at conception, breaking down some misconceptions that I had at the time, and then truly understanding what abortion was. Because once I understood what that was, once I was able to logically comprehend what that procedure was like, you know, any of the other objections that I had, you know, really, you know, went out the window. Because if you understand life and you understand what the process is like, then, and you understand the value of life, then, you know, does any stage, anything, like at any moment matter for you to do that? And so I would say those are like probably like the main ones.
You know, what's funny is I know of a person who was born from, her mother was raped, and she was the product of it. And she's a Christian today, and she says, thank God that my mother chose not to have one, even though she had every right to do so. And I found that very eye-opening and very interesting, you know, when it comes to the people who are actually, you know, it's like less than 1%, as you mentioned, of the people who are, which is what it's like the fundamental basis of that argument for abortion is, you know, the women that are raped. And so what's interesting is when and I don't want to go too deep into this, but for those that don't know, the original intent of abortion was designed or founded by a woman who was the wife of a KKK leader. And it was no longer socially acceptable to lynch minorities and blacks. And so she figured out a way to kind of, I hate to say it like this, but to kind of prevent them from even being born. And so that's where the idea of abortion came from. And not only that, they actually clinged to the feminist movement in order to kind of market it. And the feminist movement in itself has, I mean, a lot of misconceptions, even though some of it has been good for us when it comes to voting and driving a car and stuff like that. But it has evolved into an extreme movement to the point where a lot of the statistics are not factual when it comes to like wages and stuff like that. The things that are fighting for, statistically, when you look at the numbers, it's not even justifiable. And so I'm reading this book right now, and I'm probably going to release a podcast on the original intent of feminism. But really, many of them had admitted that their purpose was to drive as many women as they could from God and their godly role of fulfilling, becoming a wife and becoming a mother. They wanted to destroy the nuclear family. And this is like interviews that I found that like people that have openly said, this is what we want to do. And so it's interesting that, you know, abortion has gone from, you know, like 12 to 15 weeks to now it has gone to they call it post late term abortion, but really it has turned into infanticide. And if you're new to those terms, late term abortion is when you have the right to have an abortion up until the baby is born. And they make the baby comfortable, which means they basically just let the baby die. Infanticide is another term that I just heard of, where really they're saying, hey, you have up to 2 weeks to decide what to do with your baby after he's been born. And so there are a lot of theories surrounding this when it comes to Satanism and, you know, sacrifice and stuff like that are floating around. But we have seen the first place that I actually saw this being done is in New York, which was about like 2 years ago, I believe. And it was celebrated there. And what's interesting is I didn't even know that this policy is actually accepted through many states when it comes to the life of the mother. So if the life of the mother is in danger, they actually have a policy that says that, yes, they can terminate the pregnancy up until birth. And I was not aware of that. And what's interesting is when my daughter was born, I had a C-section, and they had to do an emergency C-section because her heart rate dropped. And they were saying, you know, it was, there was a potential, I don't know if it was a doctor or David who said to me, you know, if it was you or the baby, you know, you would have to decide. And I would say, it would be the baby. Like, it would be me. I would want the baby to live. You know what I mean? And that concept is like, whoa, what do you mean? Like, you would give your life? And it just like, that's your child. Why wouldn't, you know what I mean? When you want your child, why wouldn't you, you know, make that sacrifice? So I just find it very interesting that this issue has been magnified to the point where they've made people believe that it is their right to terminate a pregnancy, not only between 12 to 15 weeks, but also right now up until after post-birth. And so, you know, where are we in America? You know, what kind of nation do we have right now, or what kind of policymakers and governors like that are signing these policies into place? It really does make you, number one, want Jesus to come back faster, and number two, you know, how do you fight? How do you fight these policies? And do you think, you know, you said that you went to rallies and marches before. Now let's talk about the other side of that. Do you believe that the March for Lifers make a difference?
Yeah, for sure. And I just wanted to plug in there real quick for the people, for what you said at the beginning, like the founder of Planned Parenthood, before I get into the March for Lifers. You guys can look her up. Her name is Margaret Sanger. And you guys can find the origins and, you know, her purpose with Planned Parenthood, and you'll see some pretty interesting stuff that I think a lot of people should learn about. And, you know, if I would have known that stuff beforehand when I was donating to Planned Parenthood and you know, supporting their organization, I'm sure if I would have known some of these things, I probably wouldn't have made those decisions then. And so, yes, I believe that the March for Lifers are making a difference. And I believe that this is true because I think education is so important. I think that one of the reasons why this remains and why this is still, there's many reasons why this is still, you know, an issue at hand. But I think that the March for Lifers are very important. It's very important for us to be loud. It's very important for us to educate people through kindness, through love, and, you know, to be able to be at the forefront, to be the people that are not afraid, you know, to stand up and you know, go hit the streets just like everybody else is doing. You know, if you're going to be loud about abortion, then, you know, we got to be loud about saving these babies' lives. And so I think it's essential because I think that they educate people. I think that getting in a crowd, in a setting where there's a large amount of people that agree and that, you know, are in the same type of, you know, moving in the same direction and, you know, coming together and, you know, bringing this mass amount of like love and, you know, passion for this movement really helps. You know, it's a seed that can be planted in somebody's mind. I think that, you know, the pro-life movement is not everybody, but a good majority of them are very logical, you know, very rational. And, you know, of course, there are, you know, people on both sides that are a little bit on extreme sides. But I think for the most part, I see the pro-life movement doing a really good job at staying level-headed and educating people and not getting aggressive and really just sharing this information through love and kindness. And so I think it is important. I think it is important for the March for Lifers to get on the street and fight just like the other side is.
Right. Now, when it comes to you know, there's a lot of obviously misconceptions around this topic, and, you know, on not the Original Intent, my podcast, but the other one with Karina Wallace, where we talk about how this has been infiltrated into the public schools. We've seen here in Massachusetts, I don't know if you know this, Gio, but in Massachusetts, they passed a couple years ago, Planned Parenthood was trying to put a curriculum into Massachusetts schools to sexualize the children so that they can increase their bottom line in abortions earlier. And so they, the girl that was on there told me that Southbridge actually, they obtained the curriculum before a lot of other cities and towns in Massachusetts, and they increased their abortions by 50%, or I'm sorry, their pregnancies in their school by 50%. And so, you know, it's interesting how they're, you know, I know that one of the issues is, you know, why does Planned Parenthood, one of the questions is, why does Planned Parenthood have a quota?
Yep.
You know, what's with that? And it's interesting to see that firsthand when, you know, a lot of children have been indoctrinated into believing that it is their right, and they, you know, it's they can do what they want, and it's all about feminism. And, you know, how do we combat this as a nation when it just, you know, Planned Parenthood goes under the name of another company when they're going into the schools now? You know,
right.
how do we address this head on and say, no, you can't do this. You can't take our children and warp their minds early on. What are we doing? Today's sponsor is brought to you by Godtrepreneur. Godtrepreneur was created to remind entrepreneurs to always keep God first. Godtrepreneur has become a place where not only entrepreneurs, but anyone can learn about what it means to put your faith in Jesus Christ. Their goal is to help people learn more about why they believe Jesus is the truth, while also helping people learn how to defend their faith. Godtrepreneur also provides marketing services such as social media coaching and website building to Christians looking to grow their brands. Plus, they have some pretty cool merch. Go to godtrepreneurbrand.com and learn more.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. I just wrote that down, the curriculum that they want to implement. I mean, I believe it. I think that if their goal is to expand and they're looking to meet quotas, you know, like something that John and I were talking about, you know, it's no wonder why they're looking for they're looking for like government funding, because, you know, once you're hitting constantly your quotas and, you know, you don't have to struggle to find the finances to hit your quotas, then, you know, you're set, you know. And so, right. You know, you can reach more people. Now that objection, you know, like in our industry being in sales, you have objections that you have to battle. And if not having the money is one less objection that the Planned Parenthood or the abortion facility doesn't have to combat, then that's a plus. And so, you know, I think that them hitting their quota, it's all, I mean, if you think about it, why would they need to constantly be hitting their quotas? It's because it's a financially incentivized industry. You know, it's not what people think it is. It's not about your care. It's not about, you know, them wanting to care about us as women and them really having a desire to nurture and, you know, see us thrive and see our families and our children thrive. That's not the goal. The goal is the complete opposite. It's to just financially profit off of our pain as women, and off of something even more gruesome than that, which is the murder of our children. Right. And so, you know, it's really, really sad, and it's really, really interesting what they're doing. But when it comes to what needs to be done, I think that going back to what March for Life does, March for Lifers and, you know, pro-life organizations do, which is hit the streets and, you know, they march and they educate people. I think education is so important. I think education in all aspects is super, super important. You know, if you're educated and you understand what's happening, you know, like I was not educated about the abortion industry. And so there's no wonder why I was where I was, because I was not educated, and I'm not afraid or ashamed to say that. And so education is really important. If I had the necessary education, I believe that if, you know, my parents were educated enough to know what's the truth behind it, if their parents were, and if, you know, if there was more education around it, then I probably wouldn't have thought the way that I thought. And so I think that educating people is really important. That's how you put a pause. That at least you put a little pebble, you know, in the way, and, you know, have some people think about certain things. You just got to get people thinking. And so education starts with that, you know, getting people thinking. I also think that getting yourself involved in like local stuff is really important as well, because, you know, once it's at the Supreme Court, it's like, here's little us like trying to like fight the Supreme Court. It's a little bit more difficult, but once you get involved at a local level, you have a little bit more say, even in your local town committee, you can get involved in that. I also think that, if you're somebody that is afraid to speak up, maybe because your business might be jeopardized, the society that we live in nowadays, the cancel culture, and the type of the things that happen to us, that speak up about these things, these polarizing topics, they are threatening to our livelihood. I've experienced it personally. I've experienced it from the moment everything changed for me. I experienced the changes and my business and it's so much. And so, there are some people that are just not willing to jeopardize that. And so if you're not willing to jeopardize that, that's okay. You don't have to. You can support the people that are speaking up. So you don't have to be the one that's speaking up. You can do this on a private level. If you can do that in showing your support to them privately. You don't even have to donate anything if you want. If you want to donate. You don't have to. Show your support on smaller levels by showing the encouragement, showing them that if they need your support, they have it. You can do things on a smaller scale. You don't have to go on to your community and put signs that you're pro-life, but you can talk to people on a one-on-one basis and educate people. You can have the resources available. Let's say if you know somebody that may be thinking about an abortion, you can have pregnancy crisis center resources in your phone. It doesn't have to be this loud thing. It could be something on a smaller scale that you're doing to change things. And change can occur on a smaller level. Now, of course, speaking up and being vocal about it would be great. But there are smaller steps that we can take. But I think that most importantly, it's going to be education and a lot of prayer. Lissette, a lot of prayer, because we can't solve this ourselves. There's only and you and I know this. There's only one that can solve all the madness that's happening, and that's our Lord and Savior. And so, prayer is going to be really, really essential if we want things to change.
I've seen in las redes sociales on social media, mostly on TikTok, I've seen this glorified. And I don't know if you've seen some of these videos where these young girls are glorifying. I mean, they have videos of them in the abortion clinics glorifying that they've had 6, 7 abortions. Yeah. And what's interesting is when I was in nursing school, I did a rotation. I went to New York for an internship from Puerto Rico. And one of the rotations that we did was in the recovery room. And we had to take care of the people that would come through the recovery room. And they had what was called un rape, where they would basically give the girls the abortions, or the women abortions. And what I noticed was the people that were coming in that had that, the nurses completely ignored them and almost didn't give them any post-care, like nothing. What they were supposed to be doing, like vitals, stuff like that, they completely ignored them. And every single one of them that came out would just, when they would wake up, they would come out hysterically crying.
Wow. And
they wouldn't have anybody there. The nurses would ignore them because it was, I mean, the hospital that I was doing, it was a Jewish hospital. So, their beliefs were, they were anti-abortion. But what was interesting was there was no grace, or there was no, you know what I mean? Like there was no, like my heart went out to these people because I said, they obviously understood what was about to happen, and they feel regret and they feel shame. And so, I not a lot of people talk about that. And I think because of the shame, the women that have had abortions, they just they don't want to talk about it. They want to put it behind them. But really, there's a lot of trauma, and it really does stay with them every single day when they make those kinds of decisions. Right. And, there is help. There is light at the end of the tunnel. And I want to encourage those that have had an abortion, or maybe if you're a guy and you encouraged, your woman to have an abortion, and now you're kind of second guessing that, there's nothing that that you could do that God wouldn't forgive. Mm-hmm. And I've heard this account of this man who went to heaven, and God took him to heaven, and he was very descriptive of what it looked like, and it was scriptural. When I look back in the scriptures, it lined up. And he said that one thing that he saw was little babies. And he asked God, he said, what's up with that? And he goes, oh, those are the babies that are aborted. And he said most of them were Asian, because in Asia, you can't have more than 1 or 2 kids. And so, you know, he said they're waiting for their parents to come and raise them. And so, you know, I've had conversations with people, even people that have had miscarriages, and encourage them, you know, your baby's waiting for you, you know, up there, and there's nothing that God couldn't forgive when it comes to that. And it just takes time, and you do need to find help. You know, you can't do it on your own. Like you said, it helps having people, you know, come together, having other women that have gone through the same thing and have kind of not moved past it, but found healing in that. And so, for those of you that don't know, I had a podcast called The Original Intent of Abortion, and I had a girl on there called Jaleesa. Her name was Jaleesa Bell, and she has a website. I had to write it down because it is a Weebly website. It's waiting2-exhale.weebly.com. She's out of California, and we'll definitely put it in the comments so that you guys have it as well. Waiting2-exhale.weebly.com. And she takes care of what's called PASS. It's called post-abortion stress syndrome. And it's an actual diagnosis that a lot of people don't know about. And so, you know, if you've had, you know, one, or you know someone that have one, please pass that information on to them, because she helps a lot of people. It's her purpose to help a lot of people, you know, through the post-abortion stress syndrome. But yeah, I just find this nation right now is just kind of spiraling out of control. I mean, when you see all of specifically the late-term abortions, you know, what's interesting is the people that voted, not for nothing. We love everybody, Republicans and Democrats. Honestly, to me, Republicans and Democrats are two heads of the same snake. That one's just bigger than the other. And, you know, the people that have voted for this administration, you know, for Biden, a lot of them don't know that they didn't know that was one of his policies. He was in favor of late-term abortion. And then when you actually talk to someone and say, hey, how do you think Joe Biden's doing? How do you think about these policies that are being passed? Did you know that it's not just about abortion, it's late-term infanticide abortion? Many people had no idea. Did you come across people like that?
Oh yeah. All the time. It's really sad, but you know, it's sad, but you know, it's a deception, because you know, I've been there. I've been deceived by you know, not understanding how important it is for me to get involved. You know, and like you said, you know, not, you know, fighting over Democrats or Republican, but just understanding what I'm voting for, just really understanding you know, who and what I'm voting for, and exactly what their policies are. And now more than ever am I more conscious of that, you know, more than your you know, how you carry yourself, more importantly, you know, what kind of policies you're bringing to the table. I think is really important to just understand this stuff. You know, because once you understand, you know, education, like again, we're going back to education, you know, if you're educated upon some of these things, and, you know, you make different decisions. And so, you know, I have definitely come across, you know, people that had no idea about that, and I've had to, you know, break that down to some people, and, you know, a lot of their reaction is like, wow, I didn't know that. And I'm just like, yeah, that's what happens. And so, I did want to go back to something that you said. Yeah, okay, I remember now. So a lot of, you made a really good point, a lot of women, you know, that have taken this step and have had to have an abortion, have made that decision to have an abortion, you know, for whatever reason that was. You know, they do feel this sense of shame. And, you know, there is a big group of women that feel also anger from, you know, the pro-life movement, because they feel attacked. and they're constantly reminded of the decision that they've had to make. And it's very interesting because you will see those group of women sometimes like going over to that side, going over to the pro-abortion movement, because that's who, like I was like in the past, confirms their emotions, confirms how they're feeling. And instead of, like, I think there's extreme on both ends. There's extreme on the pro-abortion side, there's extreme on the pro-life side. And I think that if we can come together as women, that believe in the value of life and believe that you have other options aside from abortion, and you express that through kindness and love, I think you will see some women that have had that decision, that have made that decision, start to understand more of the pro-life stance. And you'll see a lot of these women seek healing, because there is shame involved in that. And sometimes, some people don't ever talk about it. They won't ever speak up, because deep down inside, they're like, swallow deep pill. Like, I've had to do that.
Yeah.
And, and it's really like Lissette said, like, I encourage you ladies to reach out for healing, reach out, to myself, reach out to Lissette for prayer, reach out, and if you need to speak to somebody about it, and you would like to join us in this fight, and you would like information on resources and places that you can heal, but also places that you can help other women heal, and places that you can send other women to that are maybe considering this, and like it saddens me to see that these women are getting attacked because of the decision that they've made. And it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. And we hope that, this live has served as an educational opportunity, and has served as, a place, or as an opportunity for you to say, I feel like I can come to these women and they'll understand me, and I won't feel shame, and I won't feel like I won't be understood.
Right. With the younger generation, I find that they are gung-ho, like, about this movement. Yes. And these are people in high school. These are kids in high school. And so I came across, one, and I said, they were gung-ho about it. And I said, why don't we sit down and watch an abortion? And they declined, because they know. I believe that they know that if they see it, they won't be able to handle it, and they'll go to the other side.
Right.
And so, the education, there's so many good resources out there when it comes to education. One of them is Roe versus Wade on Prime, on Amazon Prime. Have you seen it?
No. Have I seen the Roe versus Wade movie? No. I saw the Abby Johnson movie, Unplanned.
Unborn?
Unplanned.
Oh, Unplanned. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know why I thought that was Unborn, but Unplanned is great too, because the moment that she saw one, she saw an abortion, on the screen being done, she completely just kind of flipped. And so that's the same one we're talking about, right?
Yeah. Is there one called Unborn?
I don't know. I think there is, but I think the one that you're talking about, no. Unborn is an actual movie, but not about abortion. Okay. It's about something else. No, but it is called Unplanned. Unplanned is one. Roe versus Wade is an amazing resource, because that has actual accounts of doctors and people that were in Congress of what was happening during that time, and the deception, and how the doctor who actually brought it to the United States ended up flipping into being pro-life after he did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of abortions. And so those are two really good resources. And go back. What was that?
I had watched an abortion documentary that I believe I had sent you. If not, I had sent. I can't remember, but once I find it, I will let you know. We can post it up. I did want to mention really quickly the Roe versus Wade. Like when we think about like how things go from like movements to policies, and just touching base there, because you mentioned Roe versus Wade. I think that what a lot of people don't realize is that at the time of Roe versus Wade, the technology was different. Our technology has advanced so much that, like, now we know, guys, we can't argue about this anymore, because now we know that the child in the womb at the quote clump of cells stage is not an actual clump of cells. And so that at the time, technology, you got to think about this, like, technology was not as good as it was then. And so it looked like a clump of cells then. And so, now it's very evident that it's
Right.
not,
Right.
and so there's that. But also, you think about Roe versus Wade, and you think about, like, how this stuff, like, transitions, like, how does it go from this? Like, how did we get from this to this? Like, how did that happen? And that's, how it happens. Again, we're going back to education, not having the proper educational, not having the proper education, not having the proper, technological advancements, but also, like, think about, like, this, the whole political side of things. Like, this was presented to a jury, not a group of doctors. Mm-hmm. And so any group of doctors can realize that the quote clump of cells stage is not without technological advances, is not a clump of cells.
What they realized too is during that time, the ultrasounds did start coming out. Yeah. But the doctors did not do them on the patients, because they knew that the moment the patients would see the ultrasound, I mean, it was old school, like one of the first ultrasounds, yeah. But the moment that they would see it, they would know that it wasn't as it was claimed to be. And so right. with these movements, as these movements grow, they actually hired a girl by the name, I don't remember her name, but she wrote the La Femme Mystique, which was like one of the first feminist books. The government hired her to be like the pinnacle of the feminist movement when it comes to abortion. And so they had a whole marketing thing behind it, to the point where the Supreme Court judge's family would pressure the judges to vote a certain way when it came to Roe versus Wade. I mean, there's so many elements to this, where even the girl that was involved in Roe versus Wade didn't even end up having an abortion. She ended up having a kid. So, I mean, there's just so much, I want to say, corruption behind this original idea that, I mean, that the movie actually covers it really well, because it gives you so many good resources on, like, the specific names of the doctors and everything. But it was just very eye-opening to see how much effort went into lynching, you know what I mean? Lynching the minorities before birth. Right. It's very interesting.
Yeah. It's like, it's so interesting how, like, it literally just moves from this to this. But, something that John and I talk about all the time is, like, just about anything, but especially within the abortion industry, like, you start by accepting one thing, and then you slow but steady. You're not just slow, you're steady, consistently pushing the agenda. And so you just got to move it over a little bit more. And then, maybe a couple of years later, you just move it a little bit more. And now it started with, like, oh, well, I'm doing this procedure because, of X, Y, and Z case, because of financial reasons, because, the man's no longer in the picture, because, of this. And, it's okay because you can't hear the heartbeat, or it's okay because, it's just a clump of cells. It's okay because it's really early on. It's okay because I didn't even know I was pregnant. You got 2 weeks to decide whether you want this child that's outside the womb or not. And how did we get there? You just push it a little bit over, a little bit over. You just keep pushing, you just keep pushing. And then you slowly but surely desensitize people into believing that this is okay. And, there's deception is, John and I know of a former mentor of ours that said, deception wouldn't be deception if you knew. Right. And so, at the end of the day, like, it's just, deception is real. And, there's a lot of deception going on in the abortion industry. And, I'm for the people that are listening, man, share this with people, like, really share it. And if you don't want to share it before you research it, then don't take our word for it. You can
Right.
research this stuff for yourself and you'll see.
Repetition is a convincing argument at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah.
And what do you think is the original idea behind the infanticide? Like, why do you think they pushed it to that far?
That's some dark stuff, Lissette.
Is that, are we getting into like Satanism at this point? Like the satanic?
Yeah.
I mean, look, that's the topic of the conversation. What is going on? Why doesn't it stop at 12, 15 weeks? Why has it evolved to 2 weeks after the baby's born? What's going on? What are they doing?
I think to like, if we want to simplify it for people, I think like if you guys want a really like, I guess easy to digest answer, it is all about money. It is I would say if you want something easy to digest, it's easy. It's all about money. If you don't want something that's easy to digest, it is the root of one of Satan's major plans, and it's to corrupt the children. It's to get them early. It's to to use this as an opportunity to further his plan and what is to come. And I think that the more people the more babies that you have that are done, the more it furthers his plan, but also the more you corrupt the people. The more that you corrupt the women, the more that you corrupt us into, we know the story from the beginning of Adam and Eve. That's where deception started. And so, when you think about it, the more that you can corrupt us, the more, that satisfies him. And, if we think about, all the stuff that are happening around the world and we tie it together and we put, we could easily put abortion into a little slot there with everything happening around the world with, the PANDEM.
That's my next question. We've seen that and we have seen evidence, and if you're gonna block us, if you're gonna block me, go ahead. You could go ahead. But there's been evidence that has been rolled out that not only the crandemic, right? Can we use different words?
Yeah,
not only that, but also the jab, right? That those have been tools for population control. Do you believe that the infanticide is also another tool for population control?
I haven't dug into it that far, but I don't see why it wouldn't be.
Right.
I don't see why it wouldn't be. I think that it's a lot deeper than just population control. Like, I really think it's something really dark. And, you guys can go down a rabbit hole on YouTube and find this information for yourselves, and you will see that. And I think that when you're in the Word, like Lissette and I are in the Word, and you've read the book of Revelation, and, you have read books like, the one that I'm currently reading now, which is, what Satan's plan, the things that he has planned. I think that you really start to understand how much, like, this isn't just surface level. Like, this is some deep,
organized. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's totally organized. And like the things that Lissette and I do, and these type of conversation, this is not welcome. This actually comes with some serious consequences, for speaking up about this stuff. But we know who's stronger, we know who's king. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to continue to speak about this stuff, but I think that it's a lot deeper than that. The infanticide thing, that the way some people won't understand that some of this stuff needs to happen. As sad as it is, like, things will get worse. Like, things need to get worse before they get better. But trust me, for the ones that have their faith in Christ, things will get better. But in the meantime, things are going to get real bad. And if you understand and you want to understand what is the truth behind this stuff, take some time. This live will not cut anywhere close to the information that you need to know if you really want to know what's behind the abortion industry.
Maybe that'll be a separate podcast,
Yeah.
Maybe we can.
We might have to do that one on Rumble.
May
Shouldn't have said that.
That might have to be one that you register for.
Right.
Yeah, we're very well known for getting censored, and at this point it's just kind of like,
Right.
whatever. But this stuff is important for you guys to know, and you guys need to know that there's healing for those of you that have been through it, and there is forgiveness when it comes to that decision. And study, educate people. There's like Gio said, I feel like Gio and people, Barbara Rodriguez is on right now. These guys are pros at speaking to people with kindness and love. They've mastered that. I am still, trying to, I have people skill training, but I just kind of threw it out the window when I started doing all of this, because I don't know. I'm just the type of person that's like, I can't be passive if somebody insults me. I have to just be like, I don't like it when people passively insult me. I feel like they should do a better job of just saying, hey, you know what, just screw off and leave me alone. And
yeah.
But I understand that speaking to people with love and kindness and teaching them, hey, listen, there is healing with this. Here are some resources to look up. Let's look them up together. And even if they reject it in the beginning, kind of like you did, there's always a seed that you're planting with people. Whether you're talking about, the truth about abortion, the truth about being pro-life, the truth about Christ, those, don't be discouraged, because those are seeds that you're planting. Because when you don't want to be the person where you feel like, man, why didn't I say anything to them? Even if the information is rejected. So thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw this in real quick, guys, because I know that a lot of people may be like tuned in, and they will be tuned into the podcast about, we've spoken a lot about where our faith lies, and the people that know us well know that that's where we're at. Some of you guys may not fully understand, but also just to throw it in there, you don't need to be a believer in Christ to actually be someone who advocates for life. There's an organization called it's on Instagram at PAAU, Progressive Pro-Life, the Progressive Anti-Abortion Group. They're also atheists, and I would love for them to be believers in Christ, but just wanted to make sure that you guys that I share that information with you guys, because this isn't just a faith-based belief. This is a this is a logical belief, along with, in combination with what Lissette and I believe in, is filled with a lot of faith. But it is a logical belief. It does not. It could be tested through logic and science. And so, there are groups and organizations that you guys can learn from if you're not a believer, because that's a big argument. I don't believe in God, and so why should I believe in what you believe in? Don't push your beliefs on me. And this isn't Gio and Lissette belief. This is many people hold this belief. Believe that rights begin in the womb. And that protection for children, all children, whether outside or inside of the womb, are important, and that we must value life and protect it at all costs.
Correct. Thank you, Gio, for coming on. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. I will see you on Friday on Zoom.
I will see you on Friday. If you guys don't know, go to Gio. What is your website, please?
It's Godtrepreneur.com. You can see it here, Godtrepreneur. Well, you probably can't see it because it's backwards, but I can comment it on here. It's Godtrepreneur brand, and I can also share it on Instagram.
I gotta be better about doing that. Just like typing in my website on the live. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't do that enough.
You can pin it too.
Go to the website. Gio and John have been a massive blessing to my ministry and what I'm doing with marketing, because I just don't do that stuff. I can. It's a lot of work, but they're masters at it. So reach out to them if you need any help with any marketing, website, anything like that. Or if you just want more information as to the rabbit hole that she's been down when it comes to the darker side of abortion. So thank you guys for tuning in. Have a good night. Thank you, Gio.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Lissette.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening and sharing the Rookie Marican podcast. If you would like to become a partner to hear more episodes like this, go to rookierevival.com. Thank you so much for the support. This episode is brought to you by Freedom of Creativity. Freedom of Creativity is a directory for freedom-loving businesses and creatives to connect, share their talents, collaborate on projects, and change our culture through creative action. Join for free today at freedomofcreativity.com and list your company, yourself, whether you're an artist, musician, service provider, or even a blog or podcast. Freedomofcreativity.com. The culture is in your hands.